So good morning. Welcome to Mind the Moment's Tuesday morning gathering, brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. This is a time where we invite experienced instructors to come and talk to us about how mindfulness helps them live their lives, and to discuss as a community how it can help us to lead our lives as well. My name is Greg Topakian. I'm filling in for Suzanne Rowe Palacino, who's traveling today. So I have big shoes to fill. But I am thrilled to be able to be here to host and also to have the opportunity to be the instructor as well. So I'm thankful to that. Thankful to have this opportunity for us to practice together and to explore and investigate what it's like to bring mindfulness into our lives for the ordinary activities of daily life. So welcome. So we'll start as we usually do, as Suzanne usually has us. I will post a opening question. I'll read it and post it. It's posted in the chat box. So if you can open up your chat box, you'll see it there. There's a little icon for chat at the bottom of your screen. And then on my screen, it's on the right-hand side, and down below, you can see ways that you can post your comments to the chat as well. So we'll start with an opening question, and then hopefully you will offer your thoughts and questions in response to it. I'll give a short reflection of my thoughts about the question, and then guide us in a meditation 10 to 12 minutes long on this topic. And then we'll have a few more minutes at the end to reflect on the practice and where we go next. So the question for today is, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, as human beings, we all know that sometimes our mental spirits and emotions are very healthy, and other times we might be quite challenged. So my question is this: how do you notice, how do we notice, what are the signals, how does the body speak to us when our mental health begins to dip and we begin to spiral down a little bit? So how do we notice that? How can we tell? And what have we learned to help ourselves in these situations, to right the ship, so to speak? So I'll look forward to your responses in the chat box. And at this time, Suzanne and I would usually talk a little bit about the question. She would say something like, "Oh boy, that's a real interesting question." And I'd say, "Yeah, I have a long history with this. I used to think when I was younger that I was supposed to always be on an even keel, and not even an even keel, but a plane that was always improving. So my mental spirits, I thought, were always supposed to improve." So I see one question: how do we notice physically or mentally? However you notice personally. And I thought I was always supposed to improve, but guess what? It doesn't, does it? And when I learned mindfulness, I could learn to pay attention and see more clearly when it did begin to dip. So one of us is writing, "Hey, when I feel the tension in my neck." So maybe there's a striving, or there's tension in the neck and shoulders. That's that person's signal. All right, so we're noticing, right? Very important for us to notice. Another person writes, I get irritable and cranky, feel tired and run down. Another one of you writes, hey, I notice my back goes out, tightness in my chest, overwhelmed, nausea, fast heartbeat. That's the one it is for me, to be honest. I feel it in my belly. Tightness in the body, rapid pulse. So here's the thing, right? There's no right or wrong answer to this question, but it's about us beginning to pay attention, to notice that this is happening. I become agitated, impatient. And here's that person's remedy. And this is a very wise response, because we're often instructed to engage in activities that are either fun or helpful to us, getting a chore done or something like that. This one, creating greeting cards, gardening, right? Just to break that momentum. Another one of you writes, my sleep is impacted. Thoughts are scattered, heart palpitating. Okay, so we're all in this together, aren't we? So here's the thing. For most of us ordinary human beings, until we're adults and realize we can learn new ways to respond to a challenging emotion, a dip in our emotional spirits, until we learn a new way to respond, we tend to react in one of two habitual ways. The first is when something unpleasant comes, we tend to try to just push it down, right? Step it down, kill it, like we're putting out a fire. And the second way is that we begin to get lost in thinking about it, right? We begin brooding, ruminating, analyzing, speculating, conceptualizing. Now, it's not to get down on ourselves for doing these things, to reacting in this way. It's easy to see why we did if we look at the science about habits. When we stamp things down, we push it out, we banish it from our minds, we do get perhaps a moment of relief. And that's what we're looking for, relief. Or when we're speculating and ruminating and brooding, we do have the sense, well, I'm trying, I'm helping myself, I'm going to figure this out. And so that's why we continue those behaviors. But what the evidence suggests, and it's the evidence both from our own personal experience and from the research, is that these benefits are very short-lived. And in fact, there's a cost to these behaviors. When we push it down, repress it, try to stamp it out, what happens is that uncomfortable feeling, that challenge to our emotional state, just gets buried in our unconscious. It's still there, but we don't know it. So we're still feeling it, and we're still acting out based on it. Or if we're the type of person that tends to get lost in our mind, ruminating and brooding, speculating about all that it might mean, what the evidence suggests, and again, we're asked to test this on our own experience, is that we only get more mired in it, more stuck in it. It only gets worse. The picture I have in my mind is of getting stuck in quicksand. And the more we struggle, what happens? We just sink a little further in it. So it's not about getting down on ourselves about these things, but it is about recognizing our habit patterns and perhaps considering that they're not the best way for us to respond. So what would mindfulness suggest? Well, first off, mindfulness would suggest, rather than pushing it down, that we acknowledge the challenging mind state, the dipping of emotions. We acknowledge it. And rather than getting lost in brooding, speculating, ruminating, we redirect the mind to something very concrete in the present moment. So I thought now we would practice for the next 10, 12 minutes with some exercises that can help us with this. So I'll invite you now to come into a comfortable position for yourself, checking in with the body, finding a posture that will support the body to relax and settle down. And that will then support the mind to relax and settle down. Excuse me. Adjusting body, adjusting posture, noticing sensations. And I'll invite you now to call up a recent experience when a challenging emotion arose for you. So you were on an even keel and something happened, something triggered you, something provoked you, and you began to notice a dip or spiraling down. Your emotional state, your mind state, heart state. And a mindful approach might suggest something like the following. I see you. I feel you. So this is the part where we're acknowledging that it's present, that it's happened to us. I realize you're just trying to help. This is the part where we're acknowledging that these old habits, they're coming from a good place. They're trying to help us. And what's being suggested is rather than fight with it, we acknowledge it. And we acknowledge that part of ourselves is trying to help ourselves. But our response to this is, but I'm an adult now. I have the opportunity to learn more helpful and effective ways. Can I just have a little space here? So just to repeat this for ourselves, I see you, I feel you, I realize you're just trying to help, but I'm an adult here, and I have the opportunity to learn some new ways of responding to this. Can I just have a little space? See you, I feel you. It's familiar. I know you're just trying to help. And I'm going to experiment with some new ways. And I have a little space. And now to address that second tendency to get lost in speculating, ruminating, brooding, trying to solve. Instead, we're going to redirect our attention, our focus, to something that's much more concrete and happening in the present moment. Sometimes these practices are called direct knowing or bare attention. It's about attending to what exactly is happening right now without getting lost in storytelling. So direct knowing, bear attention. And the first exercise I'd like us to practice together is what I call exaggerated breathing. Normally, when we practice mindfulness, we're asked just to breathe as we normally do and to pay attention to our breathing. But in these situations where the mind is strongly pulled to rumination or brooding, speculating, worrying, what's often suggested is that we exaggerate our breathing to it, our breathing, and bring our attention to it. So here's a suggestion. We inhale for a certain number of counts. I inhale to a count of 4. I hold breath for a count of 2. And then I exhale for a count of 8. And to extend my exhalation, it's as if I'm blowing through a straw. Now, 4, 2, and 8 might not be the right numbers for you. Perhaps it's 3, 1, and 6, or 5, 3, and 10, whatever it is, you can play around with it. But you understand the spirit of the suggestion. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exhaling. And again, inhaling to a count of 4. Holding. Exhaling. Giving us just a little bit more of a target to direct our attention to, keeping us in the present moment. And on your own, inhaling, holding, exhaling. And now I'd like to introduce a second exercise of direct knowing and bare attention. This one simply called hand awareness. So with both hands, we're turning attention to the hands. And my first invitation is for you to stretch out your fingers, your thumbs, the whole space of your hand, to stretch that out as wide, as long as possible. Feeling all the sensations in the hands, the bones, the muscles, the skins, as you stretch. And then to compress each hand and to form a fist. Feeling those fingertips pressing into the palm, the thumbs against your knuckles. Maybe twisting the fists a little bit. Sensations are very vivid, easy to draw attention to, present moment. And then opening up the hand again and stretching those fingers and thumbs, all the muscles and fibers in your hand. And again, drawing the hand back into a fist position, squeezing, fingers into palms, thumbs on knuckles. And a variation of this exercise to take your right index finger and to touch the palm of your left hand, and just to move that right index finger, the tip of it, along the palm, feeling those sensations. For me, so sensitive, a little ticklish. And then the left index finger on the right palm. And then for the next couple of minutes, for you to play with hand meditation, noticing how these subtle movements help to exaggerate the physical sensations, helping to attract our attention to them, to the present moment. And I'll count backwards from 3. And when I get to 1, I'll invite you to reopen your eyes and come back to the group. 3, 2, 1. So now we have a few minutes to discuss via the chat box any comments or thoughts you have about your own experience with these practices or related remedies, things that you do to help yourself. I hope you can see the spirit of the exercises. One of you enjoyed the moving. It's the moving, it's engaging the body. What's often called the first foundation of mindfulness is the body and breathing. Why? Because it's a little bit more tangible, isn't it? A little bit more graphic. And that helps to draw our attention to what's happening in the present moment. So there's a combination of acknowledging, but still staying in the present moment. And I like that one of you said new tools. That's exactly what it's about. We try these different exercises. Some of them appeal to us, some of them don't. The ones that do, we add them to our toolbox. Maybe even the ones that we don't, we put them in our toolbox. Maybe they'll, if we try them again later, they will speak to us. And absolutely, the tools are with us wherever we go. That's the point, right? Not just on the cushion, not just on the chair for our morning meditation. But I can say from my own experience, when I can feel that energy changing, that exaggerating breathing, I tap into it now. It's becoming a new habit to go there. This reminds me of the end of my yoga practice. Exactly, one of you right, exactly. Exaggerated breathing helps me slow down my heart. Absolutely. It's a regulating exercise as well. It helps us to regulate the nervous system. So there's a lot in here, isn't there? Now imagine if we really train the mind in response to, and when we're provoked in this way, and we can turn to these exercises as our new habit, the practices can go even deeper. The first foundation is the body, but then we can move to actually exploring the unpleasantness in a little bit more detail. How intense is it? Does it move around? With that same scientific inquiry, looking, curiosity. And with a steady mind, we're then even able to look at our thoughts without getting lost in them. Another one of you suggests, hey, once the mind begins to slow down, then I can look at something bigger, like the clouds or the trees or the sky, nature. It's for each one of us to find what can work for us. That's why we call this practice, right? We're practicing how to cultivate healthy habits, beneficial habits. When the mind is able to settle down, then it's able to actually look at our deeper belief systems that often get triggered, such as if something happens and it's a little bit unpleasant, we immediately go to, oh my gosh, I'm going to get stuck here forever. Now, normally, if the mind is untrained, we'll get lost in that. Oh my, and we'll believe it. But with a mindful mind, a steady mind, we can see, no, this is just a thought, not necessarily true. And there are practices we can use there are practices that we can do to help us see thoughts as just temporary and impersonal. But the entryway is the body, breathing, hands, walking, yoga. And here's the good news. Now, I can see that you're there. I can see that there's a number of you there. I can't see your faces, but I will say this, we can all learn how to do this. What's suggested is that there are two ways for each of us to realize the benefits of practicing mindfulness. Two prerequisites. First is we have to begin to practice any new habit. And the second is we have to continue to practice the next day and the next day after that. Not a lot. If you're new to this, maybe 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. This is how we can realize these benefits. So it's been wonderful to spend this time with you. If we have a minute, we can close with a simple practice. Finding a comfortable position for yourself. May you, may we all realize the benefits of practicing mindfulness. May we all make an intention to find time to practice. And may we all be patient and kind with ourselves as we walk on this path together. So be well, take care, and I look forward to the next time for us to practice together.